Alright, and welcome back. Continuing to work on the elevators. Here I'm starting to work on the rear spars, both left and right. The instructions have you cut the one side of each of the rear spars to a specific angle to match up with the inner side of each elevator. And so I had to go get a couple tools that I hadn't had to this point. One was a digital, I guess you'd call it a protractor, to find angles. And the other was a micrometer, a digital micrometer. Both of those helped in taking the right measurements for various parts. So now I'm moving on to the piano hinge for the elevator trim tab, and if I remember right, it came in one piece and you had to cut it down to a specific size, and you also had to cut the ends to a specific angle to match again with the inside edge of the left elevator. But it doesn't have any holes or anything, so this here is I'm taking measurements and drilling the initial pilot hole to cleco to the underside of the rear spar, and then basically you clamp it in place and drill all the holes. The best thing to do is to take a steel ruler and measure each point from I used the inside edge of the rear spar, the forward end of the rear spar, and measured back to the end of the tubular portion of the piano hinge, because you separate the halves of the piano hinge as you cleco it in our match drilling. So basically what you're trying to do is just to make sure that the piano hinge is parallel to the spar. So you want to take a measurement as you're going and you clamp it in place, and mine was a little bit bowed, so I had to kind of force the piano hinge correctly. So that's what that part was. Here the left spar, left forward spar, has two holes. One is I think a 5/8, the other is a 3/8 hole, and I actually used my unibit for the first time. One of them has a grommet that goes in I think the 5/8, the larger hole has a grommet that goes inside there, and that's where I believe the cord or the power leads and everything for the electric trim motor, for the elevator trim tab. I believe that's where that goes through. So doing all the prep work, getting the spars ready, getting the skins ready, getting everything matched up, and doing a bit of a dry run here. I've already got the mid ribs, I call them. I've got those already set up. Those are the ones that you basically assemble the two halves together, and those will attach to the forward spar and go back to the rear spar. And that's what I'm setting up here is put the forward rib on, or forward spar on, and then put the ribs in place just to make sure everything lines up and is working correctly. And as I've said in previous videos, I pretty much take off bluing off of everything right away. I don't see a necessity to keep it on. You have to scratch the skins up significantly anyways to prime and paint the airplane later on anyway. And I don't feel like cutting out the strips for the where you put the rivets and things like that, because that just means you're having to peel up a whole bunch of individual pieces later. I like to just take it all in one time instead of having to peel off a whole bunch of little things. So as I said in the last video, the elevator is a bit more involved, especially for being such a small piece, relatively speaking. I would have thought the horizontal stabilizer was a little, would be the most involved, but it was actually pretty simple. This one has just a lot of small parts that are very intricate, and that you have to line up just right, and specific order on how you rivet everything. So this one was, for me, the elevators were a little bit more involved, and a lot more than I expected. At the point of making this video, I'm currently almost to the point where the left rudder or left elevator is almost complete. The right is just behind it. I ran out of the some of the pop rivets, the LP4-3s, which are pretty common. You'll use those to attach the ribs that are inside and things like that. Things that you can't get a bucking bar behind to rivet. Use them quite a bit, but in also using them quite a bit, you also have opportunity to make a lot of mistakes, which I did. So I ended up having to drill out quite a few and have gone through my number of LP4-3s. So I had to reorder some, so I'm waiting for those to come in the mail. So like I said, here just lining everything up, making sure that the holes will line up. And again, the RV-14, the vast majority of the holes that I've come across are all final drilled, so I don't have to do match drilling on the vast majority of it. I think the rudder had some that I had to do, but other than that, it's pretty much been easy to go through, and it's saved a lot of time. I think that's a big part of the reason that I'm going to be done a lot faster than I had anticipated. Watching others build their RVs, watching gentlemen build an RV-10, and a lot of time is spent assembling everything, match drilling, and then pulling it apart and priming and putting it back together again. So I get to skip a lot of that. So anyway, this is just to show the general process of starting to put the elevators together. I'll start getting some more of these videos put out, and you can see the intricacies of the build. So you can see the general framework right here. There's the forward and aft spars connected with what I call the mid ribs. And the next video will have more of the counterweight portion and the rest. So I'll let that end out here, and we'll see you next time.